The company Uber is under fire for facing some hypocrisy in some people's eyes because they announced yesterday, their CEO, Dara Khosrowshahi, that they may remove service from all of California after a federal judge ruled that their drivers have to be employed as employees. They said that such a ruling would basically make it so that they would not be able to effectively provide service to the entire state. Ironic, because that's the state that they were actually born in. But the reason people are crying hypocrisy is just days ago in the New York Times, 3 days ago, Dara wrote an op-ed saying, quote, "I am the CEO of Uber. Gig workers deserve better. Gig workers both want flexibility and benefits, and we support laws that could make that possible." So you can see, Krystal, though, that the moment that something like that actually might be possible, that Uber's like, whoa, hold on a second here, folks. We're not going to do it.
Well, they try to throw their weight around, right? They threaten and bully and cajole, just like big companies often do. I mean, Amazon pulled similar stuff in Seattle. Happens all the time. But yeah, just to break this down a little bit, I mean, Uber's big innovation, right? They create this platform, but really the big innovation is their ability to skirt labor laws, right? So this has been tried in the courts for in a number of different places, and this California court basically ruled, look, these people are your employees. Like, by the technical definition, they are your employees, and that comes with certain protections and labor benefits. And so what Uber has basically always argued, which is kind of, I mean, it's kind of interesting, is basically like, if you classify these people as employees, our drivers as employees, then our whole business model collapses. Some would say if your business model relies on basically breaking the law, then you don't actually have an innovative business model, right? You don't have a business. You have essentially a sort of criminal enterprise that is based on skirting the law. So with the courts starting to move against them, what the Uber CEO did was decide to try to frame this as like, oh, we're on the driver's side. And they've had all these like propaganda missions in the past as well. But the new approach was, okay, we're going to go advocate for this third way. And look, there are some arguments to be made that maybe our labor law needs to be updated.
Yes,
Congress needs to like there is an argument to be made about that. The other thing that the Uber always argues is, okay, well, if you classify them as employees, if you force us to pick up the cost of these labor protections and benefits, it's going to increase the price of the rides. Some would say that perhaps drivers should not be subsidizing the rides on behalf of passengers. But so he goes out and argues after the courts are moving against them that they should have this third way, and then framing it as like, oh, we love our drivers and we want to provide them benefits and flexibility and it'll be amazing. But the minute that, this actually comes down and says, no, we are going to mandate that you provide drivers with the benefits that they deserve, then they go into bully, threaten, cajole mode as corporations often
and I think that's the key point, which is that if they were serious about it, they'd be like, look, this is one of those things where we're not trying to threaten you. It might take some time in order to enact and all that. But instead, they're like, nope, we're going to pull service. And this was an innovation, really, by their former CEO, Travis Kalanick, which is people love Uber so much that they can just pull the service and people will be so pissed that they can't get Uber that they'll lobby the state on their behalf. But, you have to think about the drivers. That's how labor law works in this country.
Right.
And really, I was almost kind of encouraged by the Times op-ed because, it's a big deal, right? You're like, at least the guy's like, yeah, we should do something. And I was like, okay, And then 3 days later, they're like, nope, we're going to pull it. And I was like, oh, that's who they are.
It's very reminiscent to me of the way that companies act when there's like an attempt at unionizing the workforce too. It is illegal, but they often do it anyways. They threaten to they'll fire workers. We saw Chris Smalls and the way that he was retaliated against at Amazon. They'll fire workers out of retaliation based on some flimsy reason, and they'll threaten to shut down the operation and move somewhere else or just shut down altogether. It happens all the time, and it is illegal, but they rarely ever get hit with penalties for it. But just like to understand the stakes here, there have been many drivers, and it's documented how many drivers are out there working for less than minimum wage when you take into account the wear and tear on their car and the gas and all of that. So, this is a broader story about this precarious economy that we've created divided, where the conservative argument sometimes is like, well, if you don't like the job, go get another job. It's like, these are all the jobs that exist.
That's
this
right.
whole precarious workforce in the service sector, no benefits, no certainty, where you're just at the complete whims of, you know, what your employer is doing. The trend of classifying people who should be classified as employees as contractors is also a much broader problem, or subcontractors, than just represented at Uber. But this is an incredibly important development and something we will definitely continue to follow.
Yeah, certainly. The real key here, I think, is that labor law needs to be updated. And that's something that they talk about here. I'm not saying we have to accept the Uber CEO's way that we do it, but it was a big win whenever we were able to allow gig workers to file, and independent contractors to file for unemployment during the middle of this pandemic. That's something that we actually need to keep for the long period, because so many people live in the gray zone of labor in this country. And this is just another example, though, that, you know, they may say that they have good intentions, but when push comes to shove and it actually threatens their business, they're like, nope, not this time.
Yep, absolutely. Well, more rising for you after this.